Thank you. Yes. Good afternoon. What happens when AI begins to operate in response to everyday interactions with people? How can AI systems remain trustworthy once they begin to learn from us and from each other? These are really big questions, and they're the ones that actually trouble me as a designer. One of the dominant narratives today about AI is that it will help us be more accurate in our decision-making processes. It will help us make better diagnoses and keep us safe on the road. These narratives come with the assumption that somehow we, the humans, are the real black boxes. And if we just design AI well enough and we exert enough control, then AI will compensate for our human flaws and the mess we have created. Now, dystopian scenarios of Black Mirror aside, these that I call a smart utopia and the design ideals of control and optimization that come with it are actually a bit at odds with the messy reality of everyday life. In a study on the future of Taiwanese smart mobility that we conducted in Taipei in collaboration with Taiwan Tech, design ideals of fuel efficiency and energy savings proved to be at odds with how Taiwanese use scooters in everyday life. In this picture, for example, you can see how the scooter used at a low speed at the street market is no longer a vehicle for transportation, really, but a cart for grocery shopping. And at a different speed and within a different configuration of everyday life, it becomes a means for establishing and maintaining social relationships. Now, okay, that doesn't seem very critical, does it? And it's easy to relegate this case to matters of culturally sensitive design. The potential friction suggested by this case between the intended use of smart autonomous technology and how it might actually end up being used by people in the context of their lives seems quite irrelevant when we think of the desire of an AI that can save us from a drunk driver or the wrong medical diagnosis. So why not let AI in even more spheres of our lives and use it to optimize also our wealth? All we need is to buy a smartwatch, make sure that we stay active and reduce our insurance premium while maybe even gaining additional benefits. That's the value proposition of a startup company called Vitality in the UK. Now it gets to be a bit more serious, because what if I get sick or for whatever reason I just can't exercise anymore, not as much? Will I still be able to afford medical coverage? And what to do? This was an example presented by Evgeny this morning. What do we do? What if a badly designed and yet already implemented AI system fires a talented, motivated teacher just because the math scores of her students are not good enough? How do we fix it? When we consider the complexity of these real-life scenarios, it is quite apparent that the need for control is morally justified. So I really hope not to be misunderstood when I say that control mechanisms and regulations are necessary, but not enough. Frameworks promoting principles of control, explainability, and transparency are necessary to ensure accountability after the fact, after something has been designed. But design has to regain its agency in the crafting of desirable relationships with technology, between people and technology. It has to become anticipatory again, both to address ethical issues, but also not to stifle innovation. So, but for the field of design to move forward, I'd like to make a step back. And I'd like to ask, what are the design ideals that actually, as designers, we're locked into? And I argue that as designers, we are locked into the fallacy that all we need to do is to get it right. The right functionality, the right feature, the right interface, the right algorithm, the right user experience, you name it. But this comes from times when working iteratively and getting it right, accurate, precise, was the best way to minimizing the risk of mass replicating faults and shortcomings. It is very much anchored in design ideas of mass production. Contemporary network technologies, artificial intelligence, as well as the platform capitalism that have made possible, not only differ from the logic of industrial production, they fundamentally challenge the conceptual space that as designers we have created to cope with complexity. With runtime assembly of network services, constant atomic updates, and agile development processes, the design process is no longer something that happens before production and then it's done. It continues in use. And this characteristic of constant becoming is going to be further accelerated by technologies that operate in everyday life and actively learn while in use, changing and adapting over time at an even more fundamental level than is currently the case. So the point that I'm trying to make is that while we jumped with both feet in the digital society, our way of thinking, our design frameworks and methodologies are still locked into an industrial past. And this table shows some of the shifts needed to move towards a truly post-industrial design. For example, if we consider co-performance, that is the codependency of people and AI, more than their supposed autonomy and the degrees of autonomies between the two, then we begin to ask very different types of questions. The type of questions that hopefully we will hear also in the next presentations when we talk about narratives and counter-narratives and the very important idea of design trade-offs. And one question that we might begin to ask is, for example, how can we empower humans rather than controlling machines? In the Resourceful Aging project, which is a project we conducted and concluded last year and that received by the European Commission an NGA, Next Generation Internet Award for Better Digital Life, we address this question by looking at how machine learning can be used to support older people's natural strategies of improvisation and resourcefulness rather than monitoring, predicting, and prescribing behavior. The models and networks that our colleagues from computer science here in TU Delft and we looked into for this project were implemented to answer a different set of questions than accuracy of prediction. They were concerned with the co-usage and variety of appropriation, the latitude at which older people could use technology as a resource to improvise in everyday life, learn from each other, develop shared norms and values, and remain independent, not just from the care of their loved ones, but also from care technology. And we try to capture all the lessons in a book that's available also online. So I'd like to conclude by provoking the audience and saying that design should not be about accountability, about fixing the things that are wrong. Design is imagination of how things might be. It's about taking agency and responsibility for our desires, for desirable relations between people and technology. It's about our future, like it's in the motto of our faculty. But for that, we need to understand and fully engage conceptually, methodologically, and ethically with the true challenges of post-industrial design, which are codependency, not autonomy, multi-intentionality, not so much accuracy, and perhaps empowerment, and not so much control. And with that, I'd like to invite Gerhard, and you, Inal, are going to introduce him.